welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, the JCF and Jamaica's ambivalence re-confidence. And in the second watch, schools as shelters in the time of storm. For our social media question, we ask, do you trust the police to protect you and your family? Why do you think Jamaicans still struggle with confidence in the JCF? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
All right, today's I quote says, without security, there can be no development. Without development, there can be no security. This one is from Kofi Annan.
Yes, an apt quote there for our first watch,
For sure,
coming
for
from
sure.
the former Secretary General of the United Nations.
Mhm.
Happy birthday, Jokal.
Thank you, thank you.
May you enjoy your day to the max, sir.
Definitely.
What you plan to do today?
I go into Portland,
Why there?
Frenchman's Cove.
What?
Yeah.
You speak French?
I mean, I wish I did. Oui, oui.
Enjoy to the max,
Yeah,
Jokal.
man, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. The first watch after this break.
You know what happens when you mix one packet of Tang? Flavor, freshness, and good vibes fill the whole big jug. It keeps giving more and more, enough to share with family and friends. Now with vitamin C, D, zinc, and fewer calories, so everyone feels great. Make Tang and turn any moment into something delicious. Tang, the flavor that keeps giving and refreshing.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the par, travel par, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Wake up with the Word Box on Love FM, your morning boost from the Word of God. Brought to you by Word Intercession and Worship Center, the church where love abounds. Located at 7 Nelson Street, Maypan, Clarendon. We're on every Thursday morning at 5:45 with real encouragement and truth to start your day right. The Word Box. Fresh word every Thursday morning, only on Love FM.
Word in our hearts and the praise in our mouth. We are ready to.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, despite ongoing efforts and high-profile crime initiatives, nearly half of Jamaicans still express little to no confidence in the JCF's ability to combat crime effectively. Indeed, the latest Don Anderson poll commissioned by RGR Gleaner shows a troubling 49.6% of respondents feel either not at all confident or only slightly confident in the JCF. So what's behind this persistent public doubt, and what will it take to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the people they serve. Well, here to discuss these matters, we have as our guests this morning Dr. Jason Mackay, criminologist and CEO of Mackay Security, and Daniel Archer, principal director of the National Integrity Action. Good morning to you both.
Morning, sir. Good morning,
Good
Dr.
morning.
McKay, and to your listeners. A pleasure to be here with you both.
Yes, good to have you both with us. Now, the polls, of course, show that nearly 50% of Jamaicans have little or no confidence in JCF's crime fighting abilities. And that is so with all the reported success in reducing major crimes over the past months. What are the factors, the main factors that you think are behind these results? Beginning with you, Dr. Mackay.
Well, I'm a bit surprised at the results of the poll,
Mm,
but you have to bear in mind that persons have been overwhelmed. I mean, the country has been overwhelmed with crime for literally 50 years, particularly in the last 30, you know? I mean, if you take out that period, I mean, the Civil War period between 74 to 80 has a story to itself. But then 93 to current, is also a definitive period.
hmm
It's a long time, this battle has been going on, and it's only recently that you're starting to see um, a reduction, so to speak.
Yeah. And
So,
go ahead.
I mean, although there have been sparks over the years of reduction, 2011 and so on, they, this is the first consistent one that really looks like it could be maintained. So, the understandably, it's been a long run, so it's gonna take a while to win over everybody. You're
So,
talking that if 50% of the people now believe that the organization can win, then it's gonna take a little bit of time to win over everybody.
yeah. So, Dr. Mackay, is it that they don't believe the figures, or they have become so set in their understanding of crime and violence in Jamaica that even with the upward tick in crime, strategies, it still doesn't affect them? They believe.
I don't think they're that. I mean, nobody's gonna be that simple to believe to disbelieve homicide figures. You know what I mean?
Hmm
So you can't really hide dead bodies. You know what I mean?
hmm
So I don't believe it's that. I don't think that it's been such an overwhelming problem for so long.
hmm
Perhaps,
Miss
Mhm.
Archer, you want
yes, I
your
just
take?
wanted to, yeah, I was considering, having heard your question, that perhaps we could look at it from another perspective, which is statistical progress doesn't always translate into lived experience.
Hmm
So where there has been this apparent decrease and you have the statistics to show it, when you look at the narrative, there is a trust deficit. I think if you look at the statistics, it will tell you 1 in 3 Jamaicans trust the police. And that figure has hovered, I believe, over 50% since 2006. So even when you have a fall in crime, you're still going to have that lack of trust, which will still make people feel unsafe. And oftentimes they do feel unheard. If you look at the strategies that are being employed, there has been the approach towards improving community policing, but the disconnect between believing whether or not it's actually working and the steps that are being taken to perhaps look more at youth disillusionment. A majority of our young people
mm
have the highest level of distrust. So it's not just a generational mood, it is what I would like to describe as civic disengagement. And then you also have to put into that pot of sentiment perceived impunity. So there's this awesome power with the police. There's this disconnect between the force and the police. There's the statistics, but ultimately, because there is this lack of trust, and trust takes time to rebuild or to build. And so that may explain why you might have the stats now, but it doesn't relate within, or it doesn't reflect within the statistics, because it would take some time for trust to be rebuilt. And certainly to ensure that that happens, other things have to be done at the same time.
So you mentioned trust deficit, Miss Archer. Is it that they don't trust the police generally, or they don't trust the figures that are being released,
It could
or
come from
both?
two places, sir, with respect. We have that understanding already that we don't trust the police. But the police is also part of the overarching public atmosphere and public space that gives information. And there is a lack of trust in the government system. And if you remember, once upon a time, we used to call the police Babylon. People refer to the government as Babylon.
Hmm.
And in those circumstances, because we do not trust the government, we do not trust the police at this time, and we do not trust what is coming out, because ultimately, those persons who speak are not deemed to be trustworthy.
Hmm. You mentioned perceived impunity. Could you say more on that, please?
Perceived impunity in the context of, we know that there are situations where, let's look at what many have described as police killings. Now, does that drive fear into the people, whilst at the same time driving fear into the alleged accused person? When we talk about impunity, you're looking at how it is that they are being prosecuted, perhaps the snail pace within the system that's prosecuting the police who are deemed to be accused of instances of abuse, the impunity of other officials. So when the law is applied, the equality of the application of the law in criminal circumstances, not just in gun matters, gives the factor to people that they see it being prosecuted only on one side. So you might get it right, as you say, crime is done with murder. But what about the other crimes? Are there impunity for the police? Is there impunity for the big man who commits the crime? And because they're not seeing much movement in terms of the prosecution of who they would describe as the big fish, then there is going to be a distrust or disconnect in how they read the figures.
Well, interesting. And why this is serious stuff. We gather that you have to leave us earlier than usual, Daniel
Yes,
Archer.
I unfortunately agreed to another
Yeah.
view
So
elsewhere.
we're just going to try and take a break now. Then we come back and have your views on another point before you go.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And this is the first watch. We're looking on the JCF and Jamaica's ambivalence in terms of confidence in the crime fighting strategies. And in so doing, we have online Daniel Archer, Principal Director of the National Integrity Action, and Dr. Jason Mackay, Criminologist and CEO of Mackay Security. Daniel Archer, you soon have to leave us, but I need to ask you, discussions like these invariably bring up the matter of the use or non-use of body-worn cameras. What's your take on that in relation to our discussion this morning?
I think body-worn cameras and using them from the public's perspective allows another level of accountability, and it gives that protection to the public. And I think if we had more use of that, then the public's confidence in how it is that the police are carrying out their duties, that there's a recording, there's an independent, objective assessment of their performance, that would also give rise to strengthening accountability. The challenge with it is, and I understand that there are those who will say it doesn't really give you that objective narrative, but we must appreciate that in our environment, reality and perception are often intertwined. And so when you give a level of accountability, such as there is this objective assessment of their activity on the road and their interface with the public, then there is greater trust. If you recall, Dr. Mackay, you might be able to help me here. There was a situation where there was 2 or 3 persons who were caught on camera committing an offense, and the police were implicated or for shooting them when they had their hands up. I think it was in the paper some time ago. Because it was on camera, because they saw that the young men were unarmed, it gave the impression that this was one example where the use of force by the police was extraordinary. In those circumstances, the fact that a camera existed allowed the public to have that objective assessment, so it didn't come across that it was just a rhetoric, that it was just a complaint that is unfounded about the police. So to my mind, having that layer of body cameras creates a level of accountability and infuses the system with a level of integrity that allows the public trust to be increased.
All right. Before you go, I want to hear Dr. Mackay's views on that. Dr. Mackay.
Body worn cameras are an extremely effective anti-corruption device, but they're not suitable for combat. They have a bright light that is on, blue light that is on them, that a team going into combat would be expected to do that, because you're creating a lit target at the chest of the officer. If you look on combat teams, SEALs and so on, they don't wear them. And although the environment we have is considered civilian, our murder figures and combat figures over the years are not in any remotely civilian.
Wouldn't those circumstances be the exception, though? I mean, general policing, would they regard it as combat?
Exactly.
Well, general policing could wear it, but it's not. But most of your shootings take place with not general policing. They're targeted raids and so on.
Miss Archer?
So
No. For clarity, I dare not suggest that when they're doing their raids or their targeted raids, that they're doing that. And that's perhaps my problem with using the word Jamaica police force, because you give the impression that you're combating, you're a force, you're fighting with the public. And to many Jamaicans, that's how they view how they're treated by the force, that they are in constant combat, constant conflict with the police. If that is the situation, then you have your answer as to why there is no trust. Because the average Jamaican isn't fighting with the police. When I get stopped by the police, I want to be shown respect. I want to feel protected. I want to understand that they're doing this for my own safety. But how they're treating me, when they're done treating me, I have no record of it. I have to use my phone. I have to refer to my dash cam. I have to turn my phone on to get an objective assessment of how this policeman has harassed me. A majority of Jamaicans are not facing combat with the police. It is those Jamaicans who honestly feel that the police are forceful, unnecessary in their daily tasks. And in those circumstances, I respectfully submit that body cameras ought to be worn, because it is in those circumstances that a majority of the altercations are created, wherein the public feels that they do not have much trust for the police.
Dr. Mackay?
Well, as I said, it's an effective anti-corruption tool. So yes, in many of the cases, it could be worn if it was cost effective, but in combat, it's not effective, whether we like it or not. When you have when you have a country that has experienced 1,690 murders in 1 year at its peak, over 55 per 100,000, that is a country in combat. It is because Jamaica has failed to recognize how bad it was for that many years, that why the problem has been taken so long to fix.
So the debate continues.
I agree. General policing, it would be good if it could be worn. However, there's a cost factor. If you're going to equip the entire force with body worn cameras, you're talking for about 8,000 members, it would be about $1 billion. So if you're talking the entire 18,000, then you're talking over $2 billion. And then that still doesn't handle the data capture aspect.
It's going to be costly.
The data storage.
When it comes to protecting the public, it's always a costly measure.
Moving on your transport needs, your other needs that are not being filled.
Yes, Miss Archer.
When it comes to protecting the public, it's always a costly measure. But when we do other things, we'll always find the monies to do what it is that it serves the personal or private purposes. And that's the problem that the public has. Because we talk about being in combat, we talk about the high crime rate, but the public doesn't see convictions for the illicit weapons that come in, the warehouse of guns. They're not seeing how it's being paid for. They're not understanding how it is that we have this high crime rate. We don't make guns. We have a large population of persons within our prison circles who are repeat offenders. And there is not and does not seem to be the willingness to ensure that when we treat with the issue of corruption, that we look at how that has affected the bringing in of guns and the use of public power for private gain that seems to authorize this kind of behavior, because guns aren't cheap.
Mm.
And we continue to have this conversation of being in combat. I think we need to eat this issue one bite at a time. If it is that we really believe that improving public trust amongst young persons, amongst the public is important, then we must be able to accept that there has to be a greater willingness to take steps that will allow the public to see, understand, and appreciate that there is a willingness by the police to be trusted. We have a disconnect between how white collar crime, as we class it, and how these violent crimes are treated. And to my mind, crime is crime. But then again, I may be wrong, because I'm looking at it from the perspective that says that one contributes to the other.
Yeah. And the debate continues.
And the debate continues.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Daniel
stay.
Archer,
I'd
you
love
have to go.
continue.
You want to release, Thank you so very much for being with us.
Grateful.
Good.
Blessings. Bye-bye.
Dr. Mackay, as was intimated earlier by Daniel Archer, the young Jamaicans, particularly those aged 18 to 24, expressed the highest levels of distrust in the polls. Why do you think that is so? And what are the possible implications for law enforcement and the future generations?
The distrust in the force or distrust in the results of the polls,
In the force.
When they're young, they're just they really don't know a lot. I haven't seen a lot. It takes you have to. I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean,
Not young.
I've been around a long time.
Longer than you, but I'm not young.
I was around in the 70s,
Yes.
and I know where we're coming from, and I know what caused everything. So although I can't live in the ivory tower, I'd say, boy, and I to say that I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I don't believe that. I know and what caused the problem.
What are the
I know what
implications for
solve
the
problem.
future, though? I mean, if the young people at this stage are thinking that way, what's the future going to be like?
Well, this is what happens when your history is taught. Most young people don't know about the Civil War in the 70s. I mean, they don't. This is a problem in Jamaica. They don't know what happened they don't know about the suppression of crime back. They don't know about its removal. They don't know any of the factors that put Jamaica where it is now. And as long as we continue to keep them in ignorance, then this is going to continue, and they're gonna not believe in anything because they don't know. I mean, our school. How can we not be teaching the 70s as an area of history in schools?
Yeah.
There's no wonder they are naive. It's expected.
Okay. As a crime fighter in your own right, what impact do you think such a poll is having or could have on the morale of the police force?
I don't think it's going to. The police force is a very motivated body. At this point in time, probably the most motivated I've ever seen it. I think the police force will continue fighting as they were before. They're under a very strong, popular management, and there's strategies out there that are working. And I have no doubt that the poll will be taken account by the management of the force, and they will, I guess, take steps to further educate the public. But the regular guy on the street, he's gonna continue working, because he has taken on a task and he's motivated, and it is working.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, it will not negatively impact the morale of the police force.
I don't believe so. No, I don't think so.
Yes, and you mentioned the need for education. Tell us more about that. Say more about that. The public being educated.
Well, the public, but where our whole fall from being a regular Caribbean and Pan American country began, and what happened in the 70s and the Civil War and everything, and the whole creation of the street gangs that are the genesis of the problem, and it's not being taught. We don't know it. It's just a mystery that nobody speaks about. Most people haven't really. The younger people don't even know it took place, and talking thousands upon thousands of Jamaicans lost their life in the 70s. So because we're not teaching that history in schools, and we're not making an effort to clarify a lot of what happened in the 70s. You find there's this disconnect where you're born, you see Jamaica as a high crime country, and you almost accept that okay, it's either can never change or it's the police's fault, or something like that. You don't really
So,
realize how it happened and all the various things over the years that caused it, and how we can. Therefore, the solution is lost in most persons' mind.
so if I'm getting you correct, you're talking about history lessons as part of
I,
or a major part of the educational process of the public.
I think that generally because we don't teach the 70s in school,
Uh,
and we haven't addressed the 70s, then that's why there's so much ignorance. That's why there's so much
what
crime. We
what
know why there's so much crime. We just don't have we just don't have there's just an ignorance throughout the country as to where things tilted, how we changed, how we stopped being a regular Caribbean and Pan American country statistically.
Yeah. And I think you're actually saying that that's going to be an aspect of the educational process. Another part would be to let the public know exactly what the police are doing behind the scenes many times, and their work that is not being highlighted. For example, the expo that they had recently, I was privileged to be there, and it's just amazing, the use of technology. You want to say more on that?
No, I mean the JCF is an amazing organization.
Mm,
That has cropped up Jamaica against unbelievable odds from at its most challenging over the last 50 years. Um, and the marketing of it, up until recently, perhaps hasn't been the focus. So I think that has had an effect on the image of the force. I think over the last maybe I would say about the last 8 years, there's been a significant increase in the image building
yes,
of the force, and that has helped a lot.
yes,
But it's coming from, I mean, decades of nobody really paying attention to that aspect of it.
yeah.
It's
Makes you
a
wonder what more should and could they do. I mean, the image of the force being highlighted, and yet still the statistics as they are. But we have to wrap.
so,
Mr. Dr.
but fifty
Mackay.
percent, 50% of persons believing in anything is a victory. Yes, it's a good
It,
journey in the right
yeah,
direction.
right. We need to say that as well because the figures perhaps were even lower years ago. Thank you so very much
Correct.
for joining us, Dr. Mackay. Have a safe and productive day.
Thank you very much.
Listeners, the morning watch will return in just a moment.
Start your journey with a JN Small Business Loan with small business loans as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million. The time by JN Small Business Loan is...
Time is now 7:30.
Family Tree Hardware. With the lowest price and the best quality, we care. We are helping to build Jamaica a place to live. At Family Tree. Tree. Call us at 668-3341. At Family Tree. Tree. Family Tree Hardware. Lot 7 Elsha Main Road. Brayton, St. Catherine. We've seen
seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
Always a good move when you're moving with Grace.
You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We'll give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your worth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we see in the news across the board, government notifies JPS that it will not renew current all-island electricity license under the existing terms. Sentences handed down for cops convicted in Mario Dean case. Health Ministry confirms some workers of at least 8 hospitals have taken industrial action. A woman is charged with murder of another in Love Triangle incident. Also, Trinidad passes legislation to reduce PM's pension. And then finally, Trump tightens U.S. policy on Cuba. Those are some of the stories in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. Do you trust the police to protect you and your family? Why do you think Jamaicans still struggle with confidence in the JCF? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. Soon come back.
Dunamis International Gospel Center presents National Revival Crusade Impact Jamaica with guest speakers Dr. Paul and Dr. Becky Eneche, among other dynamic ministers of the gospel, at the National Indoors Sports Center, Kingston, on July 1 and 2, beginning at 6:30 p.m., and a day session on July 2 at WAFIF, 55 Old Harbor Road, Spanish Town, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Gospel music sensation Kevin Downswell and Gotti Gotti will be a part of this worship experience. Admission free.
Faith Claim Ministries, Somerset Road, Greenvale, Mandeville invites you to Convocation 2025 with keynote ministers Bishop Steve Hepburn, Bishop Arthur V. Grant, and Reverend Dr. Kevin Page from the New Testament Church of God. The theme, What Shall I Do Then with Jesus, who is called Christ? Sunday, July 6th, divine worship at 10 a.m. and evening session at 6:30 p.m. Monday, July 7th and Tuesday, July 8th at 7 p.m. Don't miss the fasting service on Tuesday, July 8th at 9 a.m. Join on Zoom 856-010-77842 or on YouTube at Faith Claim Ministries live broadcast on Love 101. Come with your praise, participate, and leave empowered. The Faith Claim Ministries Somerset Road, Greenvale, Mandeville Convocation, Sunday, July 6th through to Tuesday, July 8th. Don't you miss it.
The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, in partnership with Vinci Construction Grant Projects, will host the official launch of the Western Resilience Water Project and groundbreaking ceremony Phase 1, Friday, July 4, beginning at 2 p.m. at the Davis Penn Football Field in Trelawney. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, will deliver the keynote address. This project will mark the beginning of one of the most transformative and critical
critical infrastructure undertakings in Jamaica's most recent history that will provide a sustainable, reliable supply of potable water for residents all across Jamaica. That's the official launch of the Western Resilient Water Project and groundbreaking ceremony for Phase 1, Friday, July 4, beginning at 2 p.m. Listen live on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jokal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answer today's question. Do you trust the police to protect you and your family? Why do you think Jamaicans still struggle with confidence in the JCF? Jokal.
All right, so we have some responses. The first one here is from Cherry in Spanish. Cherry says, trust is hard to gain and easily broken. Honestly, I don't know. This trust deficit has been a long-going issue and disconnection between the police and citizens, and sometimes it is how things are done and what is said which causes the distrust. Yeah, let's go to this one from Edna. Edna sent us a voice note. Let's hear from her.
Good morning, Morning Watch. Good morning, Love 101 listeners and staff. My take with the police. Yes, I trust the police to a certain level, and I have a sense of fear to where they are concerned. Reason, when I see police officers around in my daily up and down, I feel safe in their surrounding to a certain extent. However, I fear that when it comes to the male factor and the police officers now, where male is around me, I kind of scared that if police come in anytime, they might want to kill them or do whatever with them. But police are good. They protect us to a certain level, but there are corrupt ones, and and some of them go in there good and let corruption rub off on them also. But they are good. They are good police officers. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Edna. Monica says, I fall in the older senior demographic. I do not trust the JCF because of the levels of corruption that exist now. I grew up around around JCF and JDF personnel. There was always bad apples, but it is worse now. Too many of the good ones have left because of frustration and the corruption, of course. They are disrespectful to who they perceive as ordinary citizens. Community policing is non-existent now, and they are filmed. Or they are forcing their way into people's homes without a warrant, so forth. So basically, she's saying she doesn't trust the police.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, ladies, for the responses. A mouthful there. As we segue into the second watch, as Jamaica braces for what is expected to be an active hurricane season, over 700 schools have been reportedly designated as official shelters, which is considered as an essential move to protect the most vulnerable among us. But while the Ministry of Education has invested heavily in disaster preparedness, concerns persist. For example, school principals on the front lines of this effort are raising red flags. Why is this so? Are our schools truly ready to serve as shelters in the time of storm? And at what cost to our education system? Well, to answer these questions, we have joining us Mark Malava, President-elect of the Jamaica Teachers Association and Principal of Yalas High School, as well as Carol Narcisse, social commentator. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great. I begin with you, Mark Malava. As far as you are aware, why is it that schools have been, traditionally used as shelters? I mean, perhaps an obvious answer, but why, when you drill down into it, have they been using schools? And why are principals now raising red flags in that regard?
Well, the truth is, schools are proliferated right across the island. They are situated in communities. They are public institutions, so to speak. So they are part of the government apparatus. The reality is, and this has been something over the years, that given the location of the institutions, they are easily accessible, particularly in a time of disaster. Whenever there's a disaster, whenever there's a crisis, you really need all hands on deck. And there's a humanitarian aspect that really kicks in at that point in time. And you just have to respond as a society, as a sector. So that's what it is for me.
And therefore, why principals raising red flags now?
There are, I think at the end of the day, it's a combination of factors. One, in with respect to certain infrastructure, there may not be the necessary infrastructure in place to respond. It's because it goes beyond just shelter. Yeah, it goes beyond just providing a space to sleep. It does require having access to bedding, for example. There are logistical issues that might come up. As the plant managers and principals are invariably plant managers, one of the issues as well is that during a disaster, the reality is even principals may become inaccessible because they have to treat with their own realities on the ground during a crisis. So I think it's a combination of factors.
Yeah. Carol Narcis, what are your commendations or concerns in that regard?
So, and let me say good morning to you, your listeners, to Mark.
Yes, morning.
And also to say that my comments are not just as a general social commentator, but I was a classroom teacher for 30 odd years of my life.
Right.
And I've been in education for 40 odd years of my life.
That needs to be emphasized, yes.
Exactly. And the school principal.
You run past the Carol. I'm a baby to you.
Just to put it in context.
Yes, ma'am.
So schools are emergency shelters, not just here in Jamaica, but all around the world, for obvious reasons, as Mark has outlined. They already are an infrastructure, they're already community-based, etc. The thing for us, I think, is that, one, we've been around this rodeo show many, many, many times, right? Disasters happen, people need to be sheltered. And we are in the throes of a climate crisis. The impact of climate change is a figment of imagination only for those who are stubbornly in denial, right? So we all know that risk and hazard is increasing. Hurricanes are increasing, they're coming earlier, storms are increasing, flooding, etc., etc. So it behooves us to have a comprehensive and long-term plan for how we are going to adapt as a nation. So emergency shelters, very necessary, but then what?
And tell you what.
What have we got in place?
And tell you what, Carol Narcis, we're up on a break. You want to hear about that? All right. So we'll be right back.
The time by Grace Could Move is
7:45.
Jamaica, your favorite gospel show on television, the Jamaica Gospel Star, is now on TVJ. God's people on the move. Tune in for powerful performances to lift your spirit and move your soul. 10 finalists, 4 elimination rounds. When the dust settles, only one will be left standing as the 2025 Jamaica Gospel Star. Sundays, 8 p.m. on TVJ, starting July 6th. Powered by Sagicor, building trust one generation at a time.
welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And this is the second watch. We are, discussing schools as shelters in the time of storm. And in so doing, we have online Carol Narcisse, who's a social commentator and a veteran educator, and Mark Malava, president-elect of the JTA and principal of Yalas High School. Before the break, Carol Narcisse, you were giving us your perspectives in regards to this topic.
So we need plans that not only include emergency shelter, but transitional shelter, because one of the challenges that principals, I imagine, are responding to is the length of time sometimes that it takes for persons whose homes may have been completely damaged. They can't quickly get back into their own space.
Right.
The challenge of sometimes the school being used as a shelter for an extended period of time. And one can only imagine what that means on several levels. The physical level of accommodating your students whilst persons are also living there, the social interactions, adults with children, what does that, how do you police that, how do you manage that? The issue of privacy or privacy for the people who are still sheltering in the school. There are lots and lots of human issues, as well as logistical and management issues that it brings. So one would want to hear, first of all, what have we learned over the years? So it would be good for us to have a comprehensive report in our parliament, coming from the experience of ODPEM and the infrastructure and the mechanisms that we have. What have been our experiences? What do we now know that works, doesn't work, is needed as additional resources? How can we get it? What is the state able to put? I notice in the recent report, the government's budget allocation is 100 and something million for 200 and something schools, part of a couple billion to cover infrastructure development, not just for disasters, but general school infrastructure development. So what's the adequacy of our allocations, and how do we make up the shortfall? Could someone give us do a national presentation that tells us that? And then how do we mobilize the additional resources so that the conditions are optimal, both for the schools as well as for the citizens who need support in a time of crisis? And as I said, what are the alternatives that we're going to put in place? Is it that we plan to have schools be the place ad infinitum for however long it takes, even though we might have learned several things about what that causes? Are there other kinds of community-based shelter structures that we can begin to plan to put in place? Right?
Yeah.
What are the public-private partnerships that are going to be possible? So there's a comprehensive nature to the planning, to the resource mobilization, that I think we need to understand better what it is and how we all can contribute to it.
Yes. Now I understand that you have to leave us shortly.
I do.
Yeah. So before you go, you, do you think that it should remain as is in terms of the arrangements for the schools being used? Do we have any choice? And what are some of the options you want to put on the table? Very quickly, before.
Well, I don't think we have very well. The schools are there; they're there in an emergency.
Yeah,
community centers are there where they exist. I imagine those are also being utilized. Church halls. I wonder whether our faith community has more capacity to undertake emergency
and those
sheltering.
were used in the past, as you know, but the concerns were raised about that as well. Not only church halls, but the church buildings themselves, the sanctuaries.
Right. But, it can't be beyond us to put our heads together around a table and identify what the issue is, and think together about what the solution could be. Right? It can't be that well, you have a couple of church halls in proximity, but you're not going to use them because we had a past experience that we found difficult.
Yeah.
So what must the schools say?
Right.
You can imagine the disruption to our children's education that it can cause.
Right. Right.
The destruction of school property, the destruction of learning materials and learning aids. And it's not necessarily willful destruction, but, just people interacting with these things are going to create those challenges.
Yeah,
So I think all sectors that have community-based facilities and resources can think again. We can reimagine how we're using them, how we're deploying them. And as I said, what is the tiered system? So there's emergency, immediate need, but then there is transitional, on the way to finally having people move back into some kind of permanent or semi-permanent shelter.
Yes.
What is that transitional plan? What does it involve? And also what infrastructure as part of our climate change adaptation strategy nationally, what are the additional infrastructure that we see as needed at community levels, perhaps at county level, if not, immediate community, but within fairly easy proximity? What is the plan for additional spaces?
Yeah.
And lastly, many of our community members are living in disaster-prone places and are therefore always going to be impacted. For how long are we going to know that to be true and not have a relocation strategy deployed?
Hearing you loud and clear.
There are people in riverbeds,
right,
and on river banks. There are citizens who are on the banks of gullies. There are citizens who are living in what were former wetlands.
Yeah. Miss Narcisse,
you have to figure that out.
Yes, I'd like to have Mr. Malava respond to some of your comments
So
before you go. I wanted to respond to your comments. Mr. Malava.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with what Carol said. There's no dissonance in terms of my views. She has really amplified many of the things. But there's another perspective that we have not looked at. Is
I really must go, friend.
Okay, got to go now. Carol Narcisse, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
All right, bye-bye.
Good.
In terms of leadership and the whole notion of what is in the literature as crisis leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I am recognizing that there is a huge deficit of knowledge and training, institutional training in crisis leadership. It's something that I'm feeling that as educators,
mm-hmm.
we are going to have to rock back on more times than not. Yeah, I think the COVID realities and that came along really amplified that. In many respects, it was just figuring one's way out. During a crisis, there are certain leadership behaviors and practices that ought to be tapped into. So it is something in terms of
crisis management.
Yes. We really need to have a look at.
But Mr. Malava, what are the alternatives, the options available? I mean, the teachers have raised their red flags about the continuous use of schools in this regard. Yeah. What are the alternatives? Are you going to put on the table?
I don't see much alternatives, to be honest with you. There are the faith-based institutions, the churches.
Yeah.
But I don't. In comparison to our schools, they won't necessarily have the sort of infrastructure and space for these type of things. They don't have the sanitary, the adequate sanitary spaces,
right.
that sort of.
Not to that extent, yes.
Not to that extent.
Yes.
Crises are, whilst they are becoming frequent, they are still few and far in between. Yeah. Again, in a crisis, one has to respond. One has to treat it. However, there needs to be a clear strategy, as what Carl had pointed out, because the reality is we have not seen any documentation, any research, any report on crisis and the government's response or the collective response to crisis. Where are those areas that are heavily hit? And you can use you can use the technology to identify the areas that are most likely to be impacted in a very significant way, and channel as much resources in those areas to mitigate the crisis as much as possible. Yeah, because in terms of crisis management, you have preparation for a crisis, the mitigation of a crisis. What do you do in the crisis, and post crisis recovery? These are things that we have to treat with, and we have to strategize around. In all honesty, is it inconvenient? Yes, it is. Does it hamper teaching and learning? Yes, it does. In a very significant way in during that crisis.
But
the entire country is affected, but we have to respond.
Yes.
And we have to take the necessary steps to mitigate the negative impact on our institution.
Yes, I'm just wondering, as you're speaking, as far as you're aware, what is usually done when the very school shelters are destroyed? I mean, I just wondered what they normally do in a case like that. Do you know?
How they normally do it?
Yeah, what they normally do. I mean, if the shelter itself has become damaged, like the school, like some schools, what is done in a case like that?
Are you referring to during a crisis?
Yes.
I just wondered. The nature of our buildings, for the most part, let's take a hurricane, for example. Not everywhere would necessarily be damaged in most of the schools. Let me say a lot of the schools, because of the type of roofing that we have. Yeah, we would more be prone to floods more than anything else during a hurricane.
Okay.
Yeah. I would want to also think that the powers that be in selecting these shelters would have taken all of these factors into consideration.
Okay.
Before they determined that this would be a crisis.
So it's few and far between. Rarely happens that that becomes a major issue. Right.
A major issue.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that damage does not take
right.
place.
I'm
just saying that when you look at the balance of things, far more, given the type of roofing that a lot of the schools have.
Yes. It can withstand, right? Yeah. Well, it seems as if this is going to be the continuous way going forward, Mr. Malava. I mean, we would have little choice unless we start building, have buildings erected specifically for shelters. Yeah, okay. Time is up on us, though. Time is up on us. Got to go. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Malava, and earlier, Carol Narcisse. Yeah, man. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959-627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Nadine Blair, and our guests. Join me tomorrow as we continue to look at the issues of the day. I'm Dylan Toussaint, giving a shout out to the pastor and members of the Bethlehem Evangelical Church of Christ as I return you to the birthday show. Love in the Morning with the birthday boy, Jacaldaya.
Truth is, you can live life to the fullest with HIV. This time signal is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The time is
8 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to Forward in Faith, brought to you by the New Testament Church of God in Bayside, Portmore.
The Lord will return to this earth some sweet day, or sorrow will then
Hello, everyone. It is so good to be back with you for another Forward in Faith. Forward in Faith is the radio voice of the Portman New Testament Church of God. Well, listeners, you see that we've been doing something a little bit different this week. Our church, the New Testament Church of God, celebrates 100 years in Jamaica. Yesterday, you heard from Reverend Dr. Kevin Page, our National Youth and Discipleship Director. Thank you so much, Rev, for all that you shared. Well, listeners, today we will be hearing about what is often referred to as the engine of the church. Let's worship in song for a moment and then help me, everyone, and welcome Mrs. Melisha Smith, our National Prayer Network Coordinator.
I can hear my daddy praying. I can hear my mama singing. Oh, it's the only reason why I'm standing here. Oh, they said prayer was a master key. If I pray, then God would answer. Oh, he really did. He showed me his care. Oh, his care. Every prayer today is a seed for tomorrow. Keep praying. Keep praying. Oh, hold on to the faith and the blessing will follow. Keep praying. Keep praying. Keep praying. Oh, we are living. Oh, what holding our hand. Yeah. We are living through. What holding our hand.
It is 2025, and the New Testament Church of God has been celebrating its 100 years of established existence in Jamaica. In celebration of God's grace, faithfulness, and favor, we look forward to the annual National Convention, this year dubbed as the Centennial Convention. As a church, we are expecting to experience the 100-fold outpouring of God's reassurance to us as a body, the 100-fold outpouring of worship from us as God's people, and the 100-fold outpouring of God's bearable presence among us as his people. Whilst we look forward to the wealth that this time of fellowship and worship promises to bring, we also seek not to neglect the fuel that will bring the long-lasting, life-changing, and heart-yearning fire that we need: prayer. As such, the leaders of the New Testament Church of God have prepared grand opportunities for us as a people to meet together in prayers and with fasting to commit the convention, the congregation, and the church at large to the Lord. It is impressed upon us that without substantial prayers, we will merely experience what God has in store for us. Centennial prayers, as these sessions are called, will take place during the preceding week of the Centennial Convention, between Monday, June 30, 2025, and Friday, July 4, 2025. We will continue during the actual week of convention from Wednesday, July 9 up to Sunday, July 13, 2025. Important to note is that all the sessions will take place from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Zoom and will be streaming live on the church's YouTube page at NTCOG, Jamaica. You may also connect with your local pastors for the Zoom details. The only exception to this prayer schedule is that on the final day of convention, that is, Sunday, July 13, we will gather physically and in high spirits at the National Convention Center at Road and Spen, Old Harbor. This final session of prayer will commence at 8 a.m. and is expected to end by 8:45 a.m., just in time for the start of the Sunday's encounter. Members of the regions, members of national ministries, and members of the National Executive Council of the New Testament Church of God are already in preparation mode. Minds, bodies, and spirits ready to commit our convention plans to the Lord and to watch Him establish them before us. As God's people, we must recognize the value of prayer in all the affairs of our lives. Prayer, by definition, is a communication channel that gives God access to operate on earth. A quote from the late Dr. Miles Monroe puts it this way: "When we work, but when we pray, God works." Prayer gives God the opportunity to operate on earth through us. It is God's desire that we become His vessels by the leading of His Spirit that will transmit His will on earth and among His people. When we neglect prayer or fail to pray strategically and effectively, we completely miss God's heart being manifested through His hands on earth. From Scripture, we can observe that whenever God desires to do a work of art on earth, He looks for a man to operate through. Yes, I know, it is God's earth, and He can do whatever He wills by His omnipotence. But He has also given us the dominion to rule and reign the earth, and He expects us to do just that. That's what makes prayer so vital. It creates room for God to function on earth through us. We will need God's Spirit to inspire us of what God's will is and to strengthen us by His same Spirit to perform what that will is. Prayer and fasting therefore become absolutely essential because they both help to submit the core of us to the core of God. As spiritual disciplines, they enable us to exchange our wills for God's. We cannot simply wish for things to happen. We cannot simply hope or desire for things to happen. Our words have no power and they carry insignificant weight. Without God's enabling through prayer, we cannot simply talk things into happening. We must pray for them to happen. Dr. Miles Monroe also puts it this way: without God, man cannot, and without man, God will not. It is a symbiotic relationship. Man needs God to intervene on earth, but God awaits man to arise and become attuned to the call of prayer and to fulfilling his needs through prayer. Prayer requires that we come to God, yield to Him, receive His heart on a matter, and then execute His will accordingly. God is diverse and He has created diverse means for us to pray using all types of prayers. Ephesians 6 verse 18 charges us to pray in the Spirit and with all kinds of prayers. Different prayers serving different occasions, different people, and different purposes. Prayers of adoration when we seek to honor God. prayers of confession when we seek to earnestly repent before God, prayers of thanksgiving when we seek to express gratitude to God, and prayers of supplication when we seek to make petitions of God. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. It just shows us that God has furnished us with various avenues that will allow for us to come to Him and to pray, unhindered, unreserved, and unafraid. If we need God's help, pray. If we need God's grace, pray. If we need God's provisions, pray. If we need God's protection, pray. If we need God's direction, pray. And if we need God's glory, pray. Stop standing on the sidelines, waiting and watching for someone else to do it. You pray. And so, as we seek as a united body to get it right and to get things done well, we ask that the members of the New Testament Church of God in Jamaica and the diaspora join with its leaders in the upcoming centennial prayers. May we all seek to commit to fasting together and praying together for God to show us His glory in a fresh way as we seek to remain rooted in faith, going with the gospel. Your presence will add to the number. Your agreement will fuel the power. Your fasting will get God's attention, and your prayers will effect the change intended. Please remember, we meet on Zoom and YouTube this week, Monday to Friday from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. and next week, Wednesday to Saturday, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. and on Sunday, July 13 from 8 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. in the Convention Center. My name is Melika Smith from the National Prayer Network of the New Testament Church of God in Jamaica. On behalf of the Administrative Bishop, Dr. Roy Notice, and the entire team of leaders of this esteemed institution, I am looking forward to joining with you during our centennial prayers and for our glorious time of worship together during the centennial convention. See you there.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith, for outlining the important role that the National Prayer Network is playing in our 100th year anniversary celebrations. The theme for this year, listeners, again, is Rooted in Faith, Growing and Going with the Gospel. Well, that's it for today, but be sure to join us tomorrow as we have another special guest for you talking about this, our 100th year anniversary. But until then, you know we always want to hear from you here at Forward in Faith. So write to us at Forward in Faith, P.O. Box 48, Richwoods and Catherine, or email us at goforwardinfaith@gmail.com.
In Jesus above, trusting, confiding in His great love. From all harm's and sheltering arms, I'm living by faith, I fear no alarm.
Be in the know. Learn how local government is working for you. Follow us on Instagram and X at LocalGovJA and on Facebook at Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. The time by the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development is
8:15 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to You and the Family, brought to you by the Kairos Network.
This is now a common story. Child disappears or child found dead. Usually it is females, but it may be males. Soon it is discovered the mother's partner abused and killed the child. It is happening in many countries. Mothers, you may choose a partner that you think is good for you, but he's bad for your kids. Fathers, the same can be true for you, even though it is less likely because fewer fathers are single parent caregivers. The fact is, when we're choosing spouses and we have children, the well-being of the children must be an important factor in our decision. Once you have children, you must be selfless, not selfish. It's not just about you.
You and Family was brought to you by Kairos Network.
We've seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
Always a good move when you're moving with grace.
Tell them cut the plastic, cut it before things get drastic. Educate Jamaica, that a feel with tactic. Yes, the reusable, no to single use. The youth them a practice. So dash with that. Make we have a plastic free summer. Single use business we no want. The ocean no want to taste plastic waste. So make we find more sustainable ways to make sure. Say we have a plastic free summer. Protect the environment where we have done ya. Play your part, use plastic smart with the plastic free summer. That's how we start.
A message from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Are you ready for something mega?
Spend $6,500 or more before GCT. Drop your entry in the box and you can win a 2025 Hyundai Tucson. It's the Mega Wheels Tour promotion, April 5th to September 28th. Second prize, a $50,000 shopping spree every month for a year. Third prize, a $30,000 shopping spree every month for a year. Brought to you by Hyundai, Redstone, Heineken, True Milk, Grace, Walker's Wood, Downing, CPJ Daiquiri, and Carryburst. Choose Concentrate. Only at Megamart. Locations island-wide. Megamart, best value by far. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Rating Gaming and Lotteries Act.
The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, in partnership with Vinci Construction Grant Projects, will host the official launch of the Western Resilience Water Project and groundbreaking ceremony Phase 1, Friday, July 4, beginning at 2 p.m. at the Davis Penn Football Field in Trelawney. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, will deliver the keynote address. This project will mark the beginning of one of the most transformative and critical infrastructure undertakings in Jamaica's most recent history that will provide a sustainable, reliable supply of potable water for residents all across Jamaica. That's the official launch of the Western Resilient Water Project and groundbreaking ceremony for Phase 1, Friday, July 4, beginning at 2 p.m. Listen live on Love 101 FM, the family station.
All right, time on Love 101 is now 8:19, and you're still listening to Singspiration Wednesday. I hope you're having a great day so far. I'm having a great day because you all know why. It's my birthday. It's International Jukal Day. You understand? It's it's International Jokes Day. Anyway, but yeah, man, we're gonna be playing some music for you. Singspiration Wednesday. We're gonna start off with this one from Dante Bowie and Rich Talbert Jr. This one is titled "Isn't He Beautiful?"
He's a beautiful Savior. Woo. Yes, Lord. He's so beautiful. He's so beautiful. I saw the Lord seated on his throne, and the train of his robe fills this temple. And day and night, the angels proclaim, and they sing, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty, was in be exalted, be lifted high, King of heaven, be glorified. All creation testifies that you're Jehovah, the Lord Most High. Oh, yeah. The elders cast down
angels bow down. And as it is in heaven, we'll repeat the sound. And we'll never get tired. Oh, Lord. And it'll never grow old. We'll join them singing, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Who was and is to come. Come on, say, be exalted, be lifted high, be lifted high. Oh yeah, King of heaven, be glorified. All creation, come on, all creation testifies that you're Jehovah. The Lord most high. Come on, say, be exalted. Be exalted. Be lifted high. Be lifted high. King of heaven. King of heaven. Glorified. Be glorified. All creation. All creation. Testifies. That you're Jehovah. Come on, one time. Be exalted. Be exalted. Be lifted high. Oh, King of heaven. Be glorified. All creation, they testify. I'm glad to know you're Jehovah. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. We cry out singing, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and so join the angels. We cry out singing, holy, oh, holy, oh, Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Come on, sing it out. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Open your eyes to see him. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Open your eyes to see him. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? He got the eyes like fire and the hair like wool. He got the feet like brass. Oh, isn't he beautiful? He got the eyes like fire and the hair like wool. He got the feet like brass. Oh, isn't he beautiful? 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 One thing have I desired, and that I will seek after in the house of the Lord, to behold his beauty, 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 forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever. Now open up your mouth. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Jesus is so beautiful. Isn't he beautiful? Eyes like fire, hair like wool, feet like brass. Oh, isn't he beautiful? Eyes like fire, hair like wool, feet like brass. Isn't he beautiful? Eyes like fire, hair like wool, feet like brass. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't he beautiful? The blood is beautiful. Salvation is beautiful. Deliverance is beautiful. Healing is beautiful. Nobody greater. Nobody greater. Nobody greater. Nobody greater. I cried to the Lord, and he heard my cry, and he pitied every groan. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Sing, be lifted high, yeah. King of heaven, be glorified. All creation testifies that you're Jehovah, the Lord Most High. You're no ordinary man. You're no ordinary man. You're no ordinary man. Oh, I see you work a miracle. I see you work a miracle. You're no ordinary man. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he beautiful? Yeah, isn't he beautiful? Oh, yeah. Isn't he beautiful? Yeah, you're no ordinary man, no, no. Yeah, you're no ordinary man, no, no. You stand alone, and we stand amazed. You stand alone, and we stand amazed. You stand alone, and we stand amazed. You stand.
Seven. 101.7. Love. We're Martin's Heritage, and you're listening to 101.7 Love FM.
Get ready to lift your praises this Worship Wednesday, coming your way inside Alive 1 to 5, packed with wonder, worship, warmth, and spiritual wisdom. Mental Mavericks assemble for the brain-testing exercise at 1:45. Then at 2 o'clock, we rally in reverence with Prayer Blast. Join us at 2:15 to hear our worship artist of the day. At 3 p.m., find out what's hot, what's new, what's next. Your scoop on entertainment, sports, and lifestyle right here inside Hot Topics. At 4:30, stick and stay for more fun coming your way as Auntie Vashti wraps things up with the Small People Show. All this and more will come alive 1 to 5 this World of Worship Wednesday with me, Sarah, and the Chirpy One. Let the worship waves wash you over on the family station, Love 101.
Give him praise, give him praise. Tell me how you feeling.
We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. The time by heart is
8:30 a.m. and it's now time for The Healthy Way. All right, it's now time for the healthy way today. And today, inside the healthy way, we're going to be talking about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a chronic mental health condition characterized by intrusive, unwanted thoughts or obsessions and repetitive behaviors or mental acts, also called compulsions, aimed at reducing anxiety caused by these thoughts. Now, OCD affects people of all ages and walks of life, and while it can be debilitating, it is treatable with appropriate interventions.